G'day guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Wildcard. Thank you for following my stupid content. I really do appreciate it. It's Tuesday. It's Newsday. Let's take a look what happened last week in the world of rugby. So, Six Nations round 3, Super Rugby round 2, and many other things happened around the world. As a result, there's quite a bit of news, quite a bit of drama this week. So first up, close to home for me, the Bledisloe Cup. That's basically the championship played between Australia and New Zealand every year for like over a century now. Has been reduced back down to 2 as of 2022. So they basically had a deal, the Rugby Australia and New Zealand Rugby, to play 3 games a year. And some years they played 4 games, and some years they played, during World Cup years, they played 2. So I thought it was just a bit too, the 4 games, especially years, was just a bit too much. Like, that was just, you have to win 3 games out of the 4 to win the cup. Like, that's really, really ridiculous, because the rule is, if it's a draw, the previous owner retains the cup. So 2 tests is not too bad, because you have to win 1 home, 1 away, as you would in 3 test series as well. So it's like 3rd test is sometimes redundant, because you have to win 2 games to win it anyway. So 2 games and 3 game tests is not really much of difference. As far as I'm concerned, this game was played with 2 tests throughout the 2000s mostly, and it's not really, for me, it's pretty normal to have a 2 test series. It's gonna hurt the pocket a little bit for Australian rugby, and yeah, but that's just just the nature of things. Rugby is dying in Australia. Speaking of rugby dying in Australia, and this perfectly segues into the next thing that came out on the weekend. Six Nations. The Italian and Ireland game was left everyone with a lot of confusion. So one of the Italian hooker was red carded after the starting hooker was injured. So the replacement hooker got red carded, and so then Italy was out of hookers for the scrummaging. So as a result, Italy had to play with 13 players on the field. So there was a lot of confusion of why Italy was forced to go down to 13 players as a result of uncontested scrums, because the red card reduced the team to 14, right? In logic, the team that is already playing 14 players now have to replace the front row, and then have the scrums uncontested, right? So it should stay in 14. But no, the law is actually that the team that causes the scrums to go uncontested is penalized with 1 player being sent off, essentially. So that's the rule, that's the law. So there's a lot of criticism, lots of crying about this law. There's a lot of, I think, unprofessionalism from the media, especially from some of the broadcasters, basically claiming that this law is wrong, should be redundant. Well, if you have done your research as a journalist or a television broadcaster, you will know this law was introduced in the late 2000s to combat abuses of uncontested scrums. So in the late 2000s, basically before 2009, the teams only had 22 players for the squad, so only 7 reserves on the bench. And as a result, a lot of teams starting to fake injuries in the second half for the props. So then the team, instead of having, a contestable scrum, they will put on a flanker in replacement. So then they will have 3 flankers and a number 8, so 4 loose forwards on the field whilst playing uncontested scrums, to take advantage of uncontested scrums. And that was a huge issue for rugby, because essentially the teams were basically ruining the actual game, not playing the actual game itself, and taking advantage of the loophole in the law to play an extra flanker on the field. So as a result, in 2009, World Rugby introduced this new law. Essentially, they added an extra player, giving the squad 23 players, and 1 extra reserve on the bench that is designated for the forward, for the front row position. So the team has to have 3 front row reserves, and then 1 for each position. And then, as a result, if a team still could not field in a appropriate place for a contested scrum to conduct on the field, that team will also be penalized with one player sent to the bin, like one player off the field. So if your team player gets injured, even if it's your own, even if it's your, even if it's a complete accident, you will go down to 14 players just to stop teams faking injuries to get their flankers onto the field. And also they changed the rules that you cannot get flankers onto the scrummaging anymore. You have to put on another front row. So if your hooker goes off, you have to put on a prop. If you haven't got a prop, you got to put on, another hooker. If you don't have another hooker, then you have to you basically have to put whatever available front rower that is there to fill that spot. So that's the law that was changed as a result of abuse. So it's not a stupid law. It's basically journalists actually being unprofessional here. And then also as a result, the game, a lot of people were not happy, saying that this should be changed. I do think that the one thing that probably could be looking into is the 20-minute red card. As the game of rugby is so highly closely contested. Having a red card early in the game, especially with the way the referees conducted, can just outright ruin the whole game, right off the whole game. Like that guarantees the win for one of the teams. So that's probably something that could be looking into. But the scrummaging laws is there for a reason. They've already looked into this over 10 years ago, and that's basically what happened. And in terms of so that's basically what happened. So now let's have a look at the second game of the week, or the other games of the week. The first game, second game actually, England versus Wales. This was a really, really good game, I thought. This was some of the best plays I've ever seen from Wales. Even RASSIE ERASMUS praised the Welsh for putting up a really, really good fight, and especially Dan Biggar. Some of his games, I thought it was really well managed for the game, as RASSIE pointed out. And then there was a bit of a contention in the end, drama in the game as well. So at one point, the Wales was having a 5-meter line out, and then the ball gets overthrown. Like nobody in the Welsh team jumped, looked like, and then Dombrandt from the England side caught the ball at the end of the line out and runs in for a try. And basically, there's video footage showing that Maro Itoje obstructing essentially Adam Beard from jumping, and the TMO should have looked at that, but but they didn't. So this was a try that should have been disallowed, as there were basically footage showing that there was potential obstruction here. And then that's a happy man. He knew. That's a happy man. So there's talks from there. So Nigel Owens has looked at this and said that the TMO definitely missed an obstructing move from Itoje, preventing Adam Beard from jumping. And then there was also Woodward was pretty happy about England's performance finally. This was a really good game. A really, really good game. The second half especially was highly, highly contested. England was looking like they're gonna get, run over by Wales at one point, and they pulled themselves together, stabilized the situation. And really, really highly contested, really good defense from both teams, really good attacking from Wales, and really good game management from England, essentially. So first time, I agree with Sir Clive Woodward on his appraisal of the game. I thought it was good. So Woodward said it was good too. For the first time, I agree with Sir Woodward. And then England, obviously, going into that game, the biggest news came out was Tuilagi being injured during training, just before selections were announced, just after selections were announced. He pulled his hamstring, so far he's just going to be nursing at home for a bit. No exact date of return has been announced so far. Hamstring strain. Now, last game of the week, I guess the first game that was played for the Six Nations, Scotland versus France. This was a huge game for Scotland. They played pretty good for periods of the game, but they were, a little bit beaten in a few key areas that saw France pull ahead, winning the game. For example, the breakdown seemed to be an issue, and line-out. They gave away a lot of silly line-out penalties. The Scottish team did. And then, basically, France were able to chip away with a lot of free penalties. There's this thing that the French kind of did, was to kind of like hold up the jumper a little bit longer, and baiting the the Scottish team to engage them more a little bit too soon, resulting in penalties. That happened many times this game. Going into the game, Scotland did have 2 of their key forwards ruled out due to injury and COVID. So Jonny Gray, the most experienced lineout operator, was injured going into this game against France, and also Hamish Watson tested positive, another huge player, hugely important player for the Scottish team in the 4-pack. And as a result, maybe that was the issue. There was a lot of penalties that was given away probably a bit too easily. And then also we all know what's happening in the world. Russia invades Ukraine. As a result, the World Rugby sanctions the Russian team from competition. This is a bit unfortunate. I really don't want to see sport being involved in politics. I remember there was a time, wasn't it not long ago, the Russians were caught like doping or something in Olympics, where the representatives have to represent like a neutral representative. They don't actually represent Russia. Essentially, they're just competing as like a neutral competitor. Maybe they can do that for Russia here, because I feel like sports should go beyond politics, because that's kind of like the point of sport. It's there to bring people together, to bring peace, and to kind of like get involved in politics and divide things. It's I don't like it. I think it's wrong. And so Super Rugby news now. There was a lot of rain happen in it's flooding in Brisbane, so the Reds is having a lot of issues. So the game on the weekend in Suncorp is been, I think they're moving to a different place, and then also there's just flooding everywhere. The Ballymore is flooded, and then the Reds has to do the gym sessions in high school gym, and this is gonna be a little bit of a issue going in this weekend for the teams. And then also Quade Cooper finally gets his Australian citizen after like a year of complaining on Twitter. I guess that's how you get citizenships, get things done nowadays. Just complain on Twitter and things will get done. But honestly though, I thought Quade has done a tremendous job for Australian rugby. Before his return to beat the Springboks last year, I thought he truly deserved Australian citizenship, just for being such a veteran in Australian rugby for so many years. And so he finally gets his citizenship. Congratulations, my man. You now you have to vote. Enjoy. And then Michael Cheika. So there is a problem with Australian rugby a little bit nowadays. There's obviously a lot of the pundits are talking about fast tracking people here and there, and Michael Cheika as the former head coach of Australia, kind of like in his post-match, I guess, opinion, put a stance on how selections should be done, which I think is correct. There's people. So basically, the Rebels beat the Western Force in a basically like a pretty historical win, and that was very convincing win, very well managed. Despite Rebels having a lot of Wallaby superstars, the Western Force was just completely outplaying the Rebels for the entire game, and as a result, the Rebels number 10, people were talking about fast tracking him into the Wallabies, and Michael Cheika basically shut down this opinion, saying that people needs to earn their spot, needs to go through the trials and tribulations, no easy handouts. And we kind of saw that a little bit with Lolosio. Got an easy handout to a Wallaby starting 10, and then wasn't able to cope with the pressure, and really like hurt him quite a bit. His goal kicking was significantly higher last year prior to the bruising that he suffered from the All Blacks. And even today in Super Rugby, his kicking has been pretty awful. He literally went from like 90% kicking percentage to like 60%. And so his ego has been bruised. And that's something that he's got to work through, something that he's going to have to build upon. But still, it's for someone that was 21, I think, last year, to be thrown into the starting jersey to play against the All Blacks at Eden Park is a very daunting and, challenging experience, and they probably should have guarded him a little better for Lolosio last year. And Mike Pacheco kind of echoed that sentiment here, saying that people needs to earn their spot. And also, we've also got a lot of, you know, talent in this form of Quade Cooper and James O'Connor. You know, we don't really want to undermine those talents as well. So yeah, so as we said, the Super Rugby, a couple of pretty big games on the weekend. Western Force beating the Rebels was a pretty big one. And also the Hurricanes beat the Blues in like the most craziest fashion you ever see. Hurricanes basically came back a 20-point deficit to, I think it was 20 or was it 19-point deficit to beat the Blues in the, you know, in dying seconds of the game, scoring I think 3 tries in just over 10 minutes. I mean, it was insane. It was absolutely insane for the Hurricanes to do that. But you know, the captain, the All Blacks great, Adi Savia, showed why he was, you know, the man. And so Rhys Hodge is suspended after getting a red card after the Western Force game. Essentially, he had 2 yellow cards issued to him in the one game, and then he's essentially getting a 1-match ban. Yep, Rhys Hodge was you know, for a Wallaby, I thought his performance was pretty poor against the Western Force. He dropped a few balls and yeah, looked out of place. Finally, the Wallabies eligibility laws has been changed again. The so-called Gito law has been modified to reduce the requirement but put a limit on how many players you can have. So the Gito law essentially stated that any player that has played over 60 caps for the Wallabies is qualified to return to the Wallaby team. So players like Quade Cooper actually can play for the Wallabies despite him playing overseas, regardless of what is happening. So that's why Quade was selected last year, because Gito law says that if he has more than 60 caps, he can play. So if effectively the Gito law says that you can, you know, in theory, they've never done it, pick all 15 players from overseas as long as all the players have 60 test caps already with the Wallabies. But you know, they never do that. In fact, they've never done that before. They actually pick 15 players, but they modified the rules this year. They kind of tested out the waters a bit this year due to the pandemic. Now they're changing the law to that 3 players is eligible to play for the Wallabies, provided that they have 30 test caps or have spent 5 years in Australian soil. So it played in Australia, under contract for Australian Rugby. So if you played in Australia for 5 years, or have 30 test caps, you are eligible. But they are only allowed to pick 3 players from overseas. So yeah, that's, I mean, looking at the list here, I think you know, Quade Cooper gets a spot, Samuel Karevi gets a spot, and then Corin Betty maybe gets a 3rd spot, and I don't think anybody else gets a chance, essentially. But yeah, that's basically the law. They basically opened a little gap for their favorite 3 players to return, and that's basically what they did. All right, if you're anybody else, any other position, essentially you have no chance. They've already set their minds on the exact 3 players they wanted to bring back, and yeah, it's a bit of a cop out, to be honest. It's quite stupid. I mean, like, honestly, who are they gonna actually not select out of the 3 I just named, right? But yeah, anyway, that's the new laws from Australian Rugby, and that's pretty much all the news. Let me know your thoughts on the news this week, guys. Thank you for watching. I do really appreciate you tuning into these videos, and yeah, have a nice day, guys. I'll see you guys later this week for Six Nation previews. Cheers.